The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the Nova Society are those of our guests and panel members and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any institution any member of the Nova Society is associated with. The material information presented on the Nova Society is for general information purposes only. Reproduction or dissemination for the purpose other than education is prohibited without express written consent of the Nova Society. We'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society, and today our panel will be discussing voters, different voter demographics. How do we think that they're going to vote in the 2024 presidential election? What are the most important issues to each one of these voter demographics? And what could possibly be done to change the mood of the voters in the United States prior to the general election? So let's listen in. Yes, you've got the protest votes for Biden where they're doing undeclared. That's fine. They're protest votes. That's all they are. Because when faced with a choice, A or B, they're going to make the choice. They're going to hold their nose and they're going to say, no, I can't do this. I mean, if you've got Republicans saying, we can't do this, then you've got to kind of take a look at it and you've got to say, the exit polling in March before an election in November is always unreliable. Most of the exit polling is going to be people that are trying to basically protest or stir up stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's my concern is that Trump is never going to concede, and the aftermath of all this, which he's not, as Scott said, he's not going to go quietly.
Oh God, no.
So if he's voted out with a small margin, it'll be one complaint. If he's voted out with a big margin, it'll be another one, or voted out. I mean, he's not in, but if he loses, and I don't know how large the blowback is going to be, to use a term from the CIA. Maybe there will be nothing.
Oh, there's going to be violence.
That's what troubles me.
I mean, there's going to be violence. I mean, and first of all, like you said, this is Trump's playbook. There's going to be violence.
Yeah. That I don't like that. That concerns me.
Well, it happened once before. It'll happen again. That is their playbook.
80% of Trump voters describe themselves as angry. They're angry. They're, for I don't know what it is exactly, but my suspicion is that for way too long, they decided to vote against their own economic interests in favor of culture war issues. And now they find themselves left behind by the economy, and they're angry. And they think that they're willing to blame it on immigrants coming in, even though I was just listening before this podcast to the Chairman Powell's testimony on Capitol Hill today, and it kept coming up that the rise in immigration has contributed to some $7 trillion to the U.S. economy, because the more people coming in to work, the better the economy works. And these people don't feel the optimism. Now, the good news is that that's really all it takes. It just takes happiness, because these people are so angry that all Biden has to do is find a way to make people happy again. And with the economy on the rise, and if we don't get any big shocks, and if they can, and I think they will, because I think that guy, Mark Fitzpatrick, who I was touting as the Speaker of the House when that was still out there, he's the head of the Problem Solvers Caucus. He has said that he's got legislation that he could step in for, and he knows he's going to have every Democrat vote for it and a whole bunch of Republicans, enough to pass it in the House that will be close enough to the Senate bill that they're going to fund the border, Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and that they're going to just bypass the crazy caucus in the House. So
when is that going to happen?
I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't think that they know when it's going to happen. They're finally meeting today for the first time in the House. They've been on vacation for the last couple of weeks. So they're back today, and I don't believe that the Crazy Caucus is going to allow Johnson to release a bill that would do the same thing, so that when that becomes apparent that it's not going to happen the usual way, the people who really see the desperation here are going to turn around and take matters into their own hands. That's, I guess, by way of a prediction, Mark. But
we hate it when we do predictions around here. We never get them. We really never get them right. I mean, that kind of goes to culture. And I guess the question I have, and I'll Priscilla's our cultural person here. Is this a new culture in the United States? I mean, of the aggrieved. I mean, if you look at, I'll go back to 1930 to the 1930s. One of the things that made propaganda in the 1930s Germany so successful was that the people in propaganda and Hitler himself understood that you present your argument to your least intelligent constituent. That's what you do. And if you see these people on YouTube, if you see them on the news, they basically ignore reality. The reality that we have is not a reality that they have. It is a totally different reality. Is this now a cultural thing?
Thinking about the angry Republican that Scott was just describing, I saw a statistic probably on TikTok, so it's 100% accurate.
Absolutely.
Totally beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Put it in the bank.
But yeah, exactly. But what it was saying was that polling is showing that millennials and Gen Zers, Gen Zers are still babies in the scheme of things, but the millennials aren't turning conservative as they age for the first time in American history. So, when we think of like the angry Republican, we also have to counteract it with like the angry millennials, the angry Gen Zers, the people who realize that underneath a conservative government, we've basically been robbed of our adulthood and any sense of prosperity that we were sold on when we were kids. And millennials feel that especially because, millennials were raised during, the Clinton administration. Everything was great. It was positive. Go to college. You're going to get, all of this wonderful perks. And then 9/11 happened and that just shot everything to hell. So, the voters in general are angry. Now, is that a new culture? No. I mean, this has been going on now this is for 24 years, as far by my counting, ever since, I was most aware, probably beginning Bush v. Gore. That was my first election to vote in. I've just dated myself. But
oh my gosh.
I know, right? But, ever since the whole Bush v. Gore thing, and we watched unfold this whole recount and this drawing it out for months because, they didn't want to concede who did win the popular vote. And now we're having that in every single election. That's bullshit. And so, yeah. Yeah, we
don't hold back. Tell us what you really think, Priscilla.
But I mean, the angry voter thing, I think, is going to be the norm. Now, one thing that's very interesting is based on regionality and probably also based on party, the angry voter manifests in different ways. And I think, Brooke, that's where you're sensing violence, is because statistically, communities with larger guns are probably the people who are more likely going to manifest their anger with violence rather than the communities that don't have so many. It's shocking, back to the whole gun thing. Maybe if not everyone had guns, we would actually learn diplomacy and how to get along and, conflict resolution and things. But no, let's just pull out our guns. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a new culture though. I think this is just the way we have been trending already, and we're at a pivot point where we need to decide, are we going to make change, or are we just going to, sit back, be complacent, and just let things continue to happen?
Well, I guess I asked the question only because, Priscilla, and this is just before Scott, Brooke, and my time, just before, many, many presidents ago, the last time that there was this kind of a fever pitch about where we were this divided was during the Red Scare. this was, I mean, it was a huge thing in the Red Scare. McCarthy had whipped everybody up and did all that. And, you were either on the side of good, the United States, or the side of bad, the communists. But it just seems like this has held on longer. That Red Scare kind of thing it wasn't all that long. I mean, it didn't have the legs
It was 7-8 years.
this is.
I bet it's about as long as this one.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, Scott, you might be right.
But the Red Scare was also a really great propaganda campaign that I think a lot of the boomer politicians right now are hanging their hat on because they were raised in a Red Scare mentality. It's like, well, this was when America was at its greatest, right? Let's make it great again. Let's bring back the Red Scare. So let's artificially create an us versus them scenario because that's what we think is going to work.
That could be too. It could be just going back to the old playbook.
I mean, it's not, yes, Priscilla, if it's a new culture thing, I don't think it's a new, I think all the guys who were storming the Capitol look like you and I, Mark, it wasn't people who look like Priscilla's age. It was old guys.
But just to make a note here, it wasn't you and me because we were probably doing something else.
But I was drinking by a pool in Florida, actually. But it's older guys who find themselves like sort of locked out of jobs and things like that, and had the time to travel from North Dakota to Washington D.C. that day, and make a big hoopla, and a lot of them seem to be saying in their sentencing hearings that they were duped, or they simply wanted to believe so badly in what Trump was saying, and now they realize that it wasn't true. And in that, it reminds me more of the Tea Party, which we're also sort of we forget, I think, about the Tea Party and how it morphed into from a taxation thing coming out of the Great Recession and the failure of the economy done by the banks into a sort of a sick racist thing against Obama, right? And then it went from there sort of directly into Trump, and those same people now 10 years older are now fighting for Trump because they're angry about the situation that they're in. They've been angry since 2008. And there's no sign that they're not going to be angry. But the good part of it is, as Priscilla also pointed out, there are a lot of young people who are going to, if you can find a way to make them happy, which really seems to be resolving the Israel-Palestine thing in some way that will take it off the table. I don't know that they care necessarily as much about what's happening on the border, but I think that that'll be straightened out as well. That these are problems that have solutions. They're not insoluble problems. That rolling into the election over the summer into the fall, people are going to feel very, very upbeat about where America is, and that should overwhelmingly reelect Joe Biden.
All right, so I think we all agree that millennials and Gen Zers, is that what it is? Gen Zers?
Yeah, now Gen Alphas, right? Or
Gen Alphas? I can't keep
Alphas
track
aren't
of all
old enough to vote yet.
They're not old enough.
Okay.
They're not old enough to vote yet.
Okay. See, we didn't know that. What is it? Let's put it out there. What is it going to take to get them to come out to vote? Other than, I understand the idea of making them happy, but what is going to be necessary to make them see the urgency that this possesses to them?
Well, if you'll recall, one of the things that helped elect Obama, among other things, was folks like Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart appealing to the generation through their shows. And I think what I know we said this a couple of weeks ago, it'll take Taylor Swift making an endorsement. It's going to take enough people being pissed off enough about all the things that's been happening to say, you know what, I'm going to go vote. Electoral college be damned. Now, there's a thing in TikTok that I'm seeing lately, which I personally find both completely abhorrent but also hilarious, which is women taking their children out to go shopping, but what they're taking is a petri dish. And they're, having this petri dish do all of the things, strapping it into its, a little cart and like all that stuff, to, right? Just to, raise the conversation. It's because it's things like that that are happening on places like TikTok that I still have a degree of optimism for where things are going. And it also, when TikTok was getting big, what was one of the first things the Trump administration was trying to do was shut down TikTok during the pandemic, using it,
Right.
It's a Chinese company or, all of these different things, because TikTok has gotten so big and the conversations that are happening on TikTok are carrying more weight with younger voters than Truth Social can.
So do you think it's enough?
It can be hard to say. I think it's enough. I don't know if it's enough.
Because I have to admit, we have had a couple of emails come through the mailbag because we did the thing about Swifties. Now, I have to admit, it's probably 99% of people that wrote about that episode knew what a Swiftie was. We did have a few. We did have a couple that had no idea what a Swiftie was. So I just saying, that's the statistics on who knows what a Swiftie is and who doesn't. It was like 99-1. Go ahead, Scott.
Was that about Swift boats?
Yeah. It was.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, it was like, what are you guys talking about? Swifties? We don't know what that is. I mean, what do you think, Scott? I mean, again, I would think that you would agree that this is the voting block that is the most important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the question is, can you get them out?
So once again, in 2016, due partially to Comey and partially to a really well-run campaign by Cambridge Analytica that sent out something like 40,000 Facebook messages a second or something like that, concentrating on areas where they could exploit the disgruntlement of Black voters, which we've said, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, Milwaukee, and Detroit, suppressing that vote, have it not by legal means, but just by having people just not happy enough to come out and vote for Hillary Clinton. That was decisive in that election. So,
and because of that, though, companies like Facebook have really tightened down their algorithms. So what's coming through increasingly more and more is, confirmation bias in advertisement, but they're more quick to hit the button if someone calls bullshit on any of the posts.
Mm-hmm. And so, the coalition has to hold together, right? And I remember arguing this a lot in 2020, and the coalition held together in 2020. The people who needed to come out, suburban women, college-educated people, Black voters, were able to overcome what had not been done in 2016 in 2020. And I think that you just need that group to come out again. I imagine you're going to get more of them. I mean, I'm really oddly optimistic that Joe Biden's going to get over 100 million votes. He got 81 in 2020. He's going to get more than that this time and could really get to 100 million votes. And, that'll largely be up to young people, I think, to come out and vote because they're the ones that don't generally do that. And, there could be a number of different catalysts that make that happen. But I would certainly say that some kind of political violent act would certainly be galvanizing. And that would cause people to really come out and say, we've got to change this country right now. And the thing that needs to change is these people who are willing to use violence for political aims, and we have to do something about that. And that means voting for Biden.
Yeah. So let's just look at all the different demographics that we can give here. I'll just go around. Who wins women, Biden or Trump?
Biden overwhelmingly.
Biden. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely Biden.
All right.
He
Uh,
better.
okay. College educated. Who wins it? Biden or Trump?
Biden.
Biden.
Okay. African American vote. Biden or Trump?
Biden.
Ooh, I
But
hope Biden.
Biden, but will it be enough voters? That's the question.
Yeah, and I do worry about that vote being skewed by state gerrymandering and voter repression.
Okay.
Yep.
Hispanic vote. Biden or Trump?
Closer, but Biden.
That
Agreed.
one I'm not.
I see scrunchy faces being made. It's like, that's kind of a tough one. Millennials?
Biden begrudgingly.
Yes, I agree.
Well, when you get down to it, Priscilla, is it really that begrudgingly? I mean, when
Compared to the
if it-
alternative.
do they
I know,
really
right?
think like all the issues that they care about, and they're remarkably good in their caring? How is Trump helping any of that?
Oh, that's exactly why I say begrudgingly.
I mean, let's face it. It comes down to a simple question: Do you want arthritis or cancer? Which is the one you'd really? You don't want either one, but hey, if you got to pick, you got to pick one of them.
Yeah, lesser of the two evils. But millennials also, I think, might be more likely to vote third party if there's a good candidate on the ballot.
Okay.
So is there one so far? Is RFK good enough? Has anybody even listened to what what's his name says? Cornell West. Has anybody heard him talking?
I pay attention to very little of it, but I will say, from my opinion, RFK is too establishment, in my opinion, to ever earn my vote.
Okay. And he's got kind of like crazy ideas. And Cornell West hasn't had an original idea in 30 years. I mean, I respect him greatly. But the fact is that he puts out a new book, which says exactly the same as the last book he put out. And it tells you everything that's wrong, but doesn't tell you how to fix anything. At least not how to fix anything that would legitimately work. So that's my issue with Cornell West. And I've met him a couple of times. Very nice man. But has not had a truly original idea in 30 years, which is a bit of a problem. Over 60.
Oh, possibly Trump. Depends on where they live. Like out here where I am in the more countryside, I see Trump flags and bumper
I'm talking
stickers.
about general, who wins that entire demographic?
I don't know that it's as easy as that. Like to Brooke's point, I think it really is based on region. It's probably based on, religious preferences just as much as it is on political preferences. I don't know if the over 60 crowd can be as easily lumped together as some of the other demographics you've suggested.
All right. So evangelicals, of course, I know we're all going to say Trump. Right. Evangelicals are definitely going to go Trump's way. Military.
Probably still Trump, but maybe edging, not a blowout.
Even after all that Trump said about the military and disparaging all these military leaders, and if you went to war, you were a loser, and I prefer heroes that don't get captured. You still think he holds the military?
I would say Biden for genuine military people. I mean, the like the fringe militias and stuff like that are going to go to Trump, certainly.
Well, yeah, but they're not like really military.
This idea that Trump is somehow a tough guy seems to persist, even though he really is
obviously
exactly
not
the opposite of that.
Yeah,
but it really does seem to
marshmallow.
To attract the people who are like, we're hawkish and all that kind of stuff. Even while they point out that Trump didn't start any new wars or anything like that, military still would go to Trump, but it wouldn't be it's not the blowout that it has been traditionally, I don't think, because I think Republicans have generally done a lot better with the military.
Yeah, I'm thinking though is like, on military bases, how many of those bases have um, immigrants, military spouses,
Young
and
people.
how many of those military spouses may be going through things like fertility treatments. So it may boil down to the extent to which those issues have an immediate effect on the household that will sway the vote.
Okay. All right. So let's put this another way. What do you see? I'll go around again. What do you see as, in fact, this actually, I'm now into the mailbag. What do you see as the most important issue? And I'll name the demographic, and what you think is the important issue to them, but what do you think should be the important issue to them? That was the mailbag question, and it was basically phrased that there's a lot of different demographics in the United States. Each have different ideas of what's important issues to them, but sometimes what they think is an important issue to them shouldn't be the truly important issue to them. As Scott and I and Brooke and Priscilla have said, voting against your own interests. So let's do it. We'll start with Priscilla. Women. What is their most important issue, but what should be their most important issue?
Women's health rights and women's health rights.
Okay. Scott?
The economy and women's health rights.
So you think the economy is more important to women than women's health rights, or do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. Brooklyn?
Well, women's health rights certainly should be foremost. And as far as whether it is or not, for me, I would depend on how old the woman is and whether or not she has grandchildren.
Okay.
I would also add to that under women, trans women, because women's health rights affect them as well.
Oh, definitely. Oh, absolutely, it does. Yeah, I mean, women's health. That would depend. So for that, yeah, I would add the caveat that women's health should be the most important. But what is the most important? I honestly don't know. I really don't. But for me, women's health definitely is, because I have a granddaughter and because I know many trans women.
Okay.
So,
I'm going to say that the most important issue to women right now is abortion, which goes along with what should be the most important issue to them, which is women's health rights. Because it really all does kind of lump together. And that was the other one that I didn't mention when we were going through the different demographics. LGBTQ, Trump or Biden?
Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of figured that was like that was a no-brainer. Yeah. But it was on the list.
Since you mentioned the abortion thing, the reason why I don't say abortion directly, and I say women's health rights, is because for at least younger liberal women, it's not about necessarily abortion. It's about access to things like Planned Parenthood. And the two get lumped together so frequently. And Planned Parenthood gets vilified because of the services it offers, when really at the end of the day, women just want adequate health care.
Yep. Yeah. I saw somewhere that Planned Parenthood was accused of trafficking girls to force them to have abortions, or some completely ludicrous thing. And now Republicans would also like to ban birth control.
Okay.
And the morning after pill.
And the morning after pill. And of course, there's the IVF. I mean, so yeah, women's health and access to that.
So,
because
all right, so would we call the most important issue to women really, if you lump it all together, choice and body autonomy?
Yeah. and access to that. I mean, if you're out in the middle of wherever and you can't get there, and because there are no healthcare providers, because they've all left because they're afraid of being sued or put in prison. I mean, you have nothing.
Okay.
So yeah.
So
All right.
I want to just take a step back and say why I said economy first. Women are the ones who go to the supermarket, pay the most attention. I go to the supermarket, I buy by color. I don't I really don't look at what the price of something is. I say, oh, that's the color. I've seen that in the refrigerator before, and that's the color I buy. My wife goes shopping and it's like everything is scrutinized. She reads labels. She checks prices. She makes a lot of choices that are different, I think, than I would. And I think women are increasingly in America the breadwinners in the family, and increasingly in America the ones who take care of the books at home.
Yeah.
Do the banking, pay the bills, and things like that.
I agree. That's the way it is in my house. I just basically, when I go to the store, I'm told what I'm getting. I have my list, and I am not allowed to deviate from it in any manner whatsoever, unless I see something that's chocolate that I think that she would like. And that's my only deviation that I am truly allowed. So that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our sponsors for this episode. BH Conflict Resolution Services, a full-service dispute resolution firm offering expert and cost-effective mediation services to couples, groups, and businesses. BHCRS can be reached at www.bhcrs.com. We'd also like to thank our podcast partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, and Podkite, who does all of our analytics. iHeartRadio, where people get their music and podcasts, Apple iTunes, the largest source for music and podcasts on the internet, Spotify, the most popular source for the Nova Society. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms. We'd like to thank all of our listeners. Without you, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a comment, question, or would like to be a guest on the Nova Society, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. Always remember, the power of society is knowledge. So for Dr. Scott Gershworth, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Be well, and we hope to see you again next time.